Hello everyone. Today's talk is titled Nothingness Introduces Mindfulness. And so we want to understand that moment after a human being has experienced a moment that is empty, a moment that is relevant to nothing, but it is about the absolute experience of the experiencer. When we question ourselves to the depth of knowing who we are, we must realize that there are two ways of entering depth. One, you go with preparation. Two, you go without preparation. And what that really means is that do you know why you're looking deeply, or do you not know why you're looking deeply? And the reason why for the Western people in the Western culture, or in the Western world or Western society, need to be aware of why, because if they don't have a purpose, they will gain an ability without any reason and suddenly become a very sharp tool for other users. So it's very important for us to see that we want to grow our ability consciously. Man wants to see that when he enters that nothingness, that no-thing moment, he is recognizing his being more than just a body. And so where are bodies being observed from? And that is the intelligence that begins to coordinate you to an aspect of your reality which is more unknown. The unknown does not mean it is here to replace the character in the story in any way. The unknown does not need to touch the character in the story. You're always here listening to this wherever you are. Your present moment is comfortable. Perhaps you could be in a park, you could be in a living room, you could be anywhere. So wherever you are listening to whatever, you need to be aware of what it is existentially that is conscious. As we question and become aware of who is living, it's that moment that sheep who's always been, that lion who's always thought it was a sheep, begins to see, wait a minute, I kind of look a bit retarded in this crowd. And what that means is that the sheep, in finding a pond, in finding a self-reflective moment in reality where the ripples of desire have just stopped, and you're just observing life without a need of wanting, just as experience, you begin to see it is not about language. It's not about etiquette in which you go to a heavenly place. A heavenly place is where your experience is heavenly. So if you're able to be on earth and to enhance your perception to a heavenly gaze, that means to be one where it is beyond where you are now. So what that means is your immediate axioms will begin from just being that it is from emptiness that man originates. So nothingness is the ability for man to be aware of space. And what is space? It is the lack of something. It is absence. So what that means is when you come in the room and when you leave that room, you have a clarity in knowing that room is empty. So similarly, you have that clarity in different transitions in your life, but because you've been constantly trying to make sense of things, through one idea rather than the intelligence of your moment, beyond a segmentation of space and time, you will see that your clarity is to introduce yourself to yourself in a manner where the illusion is a direct experience. And so this is the power of meditation. To, in whatever horizontal part of the story, for the characters to sit down and see that it is an expression of the storyteller. And that the storyteller and the character on one level are separate in the sense that there's someone to be devoted to someone else, to the whole, the individual, the collective, and the collective individual realm is present in a manner of how man conceives himself. But at the same time, that observance is an objective observance. Anything that you perceive existentially is an objective observance, and so your certainty cannot be just set in a static state of being. It cannot just be a snapshot of something that is a moving experience. So life is a moving experience because you're shifting. And so if it is not natural for you to shift your senses of self, you will be very heavy when the time of death comes. And when I say death, I don't want to say it's not just physical dissolution, it's how you're letting go of life. What that means is, it is suggested that, I believe in certain scientific searches, that the body grows until 30 and more, and then it comes back down. It reduces. It's as if your physical life force is becoming lesser. You're letting go. When you see such a thing happen, that does not mean you're lost to how that setting is defined. It just means that there are some parts of your experience which, even though you have the free will of experiencing, it's just put there. It is the world in front of you. And so this is why respect has been a very important concept. You don't need to just respect your elders, you need to respect your moment of existence and experience. Because once you do, then you will begin realizing why the fire of the shaman was burning so bright. Because there was a clarity in existential intelligence that moved beyond ideology. And so a man that knew it was not lost to his own conception of darkness or what is of the light. What that means is, if you think that your communication is still based on an individual relationship, that is a flaw. You are an individuality within many other individuals who all together are within a collective. The cells make up the body. And so even that brick wall will be understood to be made by you. Because the designer of your moment of awareness is a life force so able and untouchable that you always know you're from beyond your limitation. And that's why you can see your limitation. And suffering is actually a healthy sign that the species is realizing the seeds of self-awareness are growing into that beyond the animal framework. When I speak, I am projecting a world that I have observed and that has come to me experientially. But through observing this world, I've noticed everyone else has their own world too. So when I'm talking, when I'm saying the word, who are we really saying the same word? And that question has no answer. Because man's experience is vital. Man's experience is the fulfillment of life he seeks. So what that means is, even though you're a billionaire, if you do not give yourself, you do not have that existential confrontation to experience your individuality in collective ways, with life as life, you will see that you are blindfolding yourself and wondering why hitting the wall feels like the end of the world. On some level, we are all alone in how we are handling our moment of experience. Free will means that you took the existential responsibility to understand your individuality, and as an individual you have choice. But the space of the choice is also the space of the greater knowing of the individual. And so you will see that if you let your choices come to you, they are still your choice, but through a different intelligence, through a more dynamic state. It's as if you're not looking for the truth in the rain, but in the stream that knew its direction to the ocean. And when it went to the clouds, when the ocean went to the clouds, it recognized, it always knew it was the drop. So similarly, human consciousness is said to go in such a manner. And this is, of course, a playful construct for this moment, but it will help us. Because we are seeing that man is working with his experience and being aware of his experience, where he sees, if he chooses to enter his subtler realms, to work in multidimensional ways and with advanced communication, he must immediately understand the simple wisdoms of being honest, authentic, and clear in perception, and immediately adjust himself as a being. You're not here just to be better than those people who bullied you when you were younger, or your enemies. You're not here to be victorious. You're here to be the greatest moment of experience you can be in this time that you have, in this temporal reality. So what that means is, since you're born till the end, what is significant is not how much food you eat, perhaps. It is how much the flow of your experience is going and how much you're becoming more able to handle your own flow. All those people who are in poverty, we look at them on some way, they may be starved physically, but their minds are still starved. A being that comes into form has an inspiration to live. It doesn't matter how much that human being is my enemy. He's come into human form to be alive. It's an experience of life in manifestation. And so if I choose to make a story and dull it down and scientifically bash things with an objective hammer that is not allowed to be questioned, then my education will feel as if it's filling me up, but only when I accept it, but not accept my own vision. Because many children today are having multidimensional experiences, and this cannot be maintained in an educational system that is not allowing that area to be grown. So what that means is when you see, for example, this world is saying, no, we're all objects in regards to a scientific framework, and not acknowledging the greater existence of the soul or spirit, then you see, okay, there's one way of rejecting it that's saying, okay, that's not truth, but there's another way of rejecting it where some people reject it and don't even let that truth to grow. It becomes a matter of heresy. And so heresy is a foolish mistake because it is a game that serves no man, and because it is not a game by man. It is a game by thoughts that are lost in the way that they were designed, which were not helpful. What that means is when you go to the store, there's a certain way you're communicating to people. And in the manner of your communication, based on how real it is, authentic it is, and how clear it is, you are getting what you can say to people. So, not to confuse you there, it's just pretty much when you go to somewhere else where you have to speak, there's one way you can think of what to say, but there's also a way of thinking of the way you're saying. How comfortable you are with the life that you are, and how comfortably are you willing to confront all those things people were afraid of not to confronting. Gosh, I thought I had my own fears to confront. Then I went and realized, oh my God, a lot of my own fears are collective human fears. Fears that are uncharted territories, and there has not been exploration. What that means is our minds have been looking too long at. What that means is we must not be an audience for too long, but you must realize that you must observe your life for a certain period and then activate it and be active in making those decisions. So for example, how my talks have come into manifestation is that it wasn't I just sat down and I'm like, I'm going to make this. I did not know till perhaps until I had a majority of them collected. You don't know what's going to happen, but trust the quality of your expression. Trust your creative ability. Trust how your hand holds the pen and the pencil. Remember, the artist, the writer is one who is pushing aside all worlds to introduce through his nothingness, very mindfully, the greater treasures that lie beyond man's illusion. Acts of self-discovery are great. When a human being talks about equality, the reason that's great is because equality is suggesting beyond limitation, and innately all beings recognize that. We are a species who are self-aware and who is self-aware enough and has enough knowledge to create abstract forms of peace. We might not have actual peace, but we can create tolerance to peace. We can begin planting seeds of where people become cultural bridges. You're born in one country, then you're raised in another country, you're between two cultures. Utilize that, make a bridge, become the translator of the knowing that you have gained through your experience. That moment where you were a kid and you found a rock, as valuable as that moment where you may get your PhD. As valuable as that moment where you begin making your greatest artwork. Every moment of your life is equal, and that is existential rights before human rights. To know that experience is equal, and that is why those beings who are compassionate to their whole moment, in other words, it's not that he's just being nice to you, he's being nice to every aspect of his experience. He is allowing himself to evolve. He is allowing himself to see beyond the spectrum. And that is a knowing that must be found within you. And that is why Mr. Within will stand with an army of white lions. To show you that a roar is an instant away. Your greatness, your ability is all in you going through that experience, going through that toughness, confronting the fullness of your flaw. And then, when you have accepted your least and lowest point of idea and image, then using that as an existential platform through a nothingness. In other words, you're not dependent on things anymore. You're experience-based and life-sensitively dependent. You will begin to see that your knowing will become significant. You won't be answering other people's questions. You won't be that accountant who forgot to live. You will see that you will be your adjustment because a part of you will align you instantly. It's like that player who was perhaps the greatest player on that football team he may be wondering, in his bedroom, looking out the window, where he could be right now, until it suddenly hits him that their game is playing and he has only 5 minutes to get to the stadium. And through some method of teleportation, let's say he gets there, you will see, he will know that he is there. You know how your home looks, just like you know how your house looks. You can have that certainty in how your actions are. So when I ask a question, there's a way of asking it where I don't even know if I'm asking a question or not. I'm like, is it? Where for some time I would use the word kinda a lot. And kinda is such a useless word. It is only accepted in certain situations on TV shows, However, there is an emphasis there to know the self of all selves, and that which is your whole moment, not a simple distinguishment in the moment. Because then your sense of not wanting to be anyone, do anything, try anything, in other words, there's no sense of try, and you go into this form of silence of just seeing life, and then you begin to see that the only thing that your conditioning was how intensely ideas were hit into your mind and accepted by you before you had a chance to look at who you were. As the days go by, so do you realize that there was never a you sleeping, but one who was so awake that in that wakefulness was the perceiver of all worlds. In other words, you are handling infinity and introducing it to your linearity by realizing your linear idea has to accept empty aspects of itself, has to accept unknown portions. When you give yourself unknown portions, you can't judge yourself. When people say, "Oh, you're bad at I don't know, basketball or something," even though you don't play it, you would see that it would not bother you because you're aware of the communicator they are and the receiver and the communicator you are. So in Titanic, there was a moment where they were all in that fantasy where suddenly when the ship was about to go down, they all got up and they're like, gosh, it's every man for himself. And they realized that was it from day one. That we were with our own experience, and to know ourselves will give us the ability to know others. Because then we will assume others need to be aware of us. Then we would expect more from others. When you see this life as a mountain that you must climb alone, you will gain the wisdom of carrying the knowledge that comes with greater experience. In your sincerity, you will give yourself absence, space. You will give yourself, in your honesty, an ability for that idea who wanted to survive through its desires to fade. And as it does, you see yourself. And as you do, it is there. Then you see if after the world has ended, you want to be there or not. Because when I was younger, when I was very young, whenever I would get bothered by something, I would just go isolate myself in a room. I would go leave everybody. I would go and I would just go in some dark. I don't know. I would just put the curtains and just be in the darkness, and just lie in my bed and wonder what was going on, right? And later on, I realized meditation is that in a more organized way. But in seeing that, I realized that we expect too much because we are not caring for others. The minute you care for others, you see, for you to expect something in this world is too much. Even your parents, even everyone who's helped you so far, they have done favors for you because they are going through the same life process. They are temporal beings too. And so when a temporal being stands to make an eternal contribution, that is when man is defined by transcendent action. So Martin Luther King's action of going and doing that speech was a transcendent action of inspiration. It inspired man because it told man it could be more than itself. It inspired the human because it told itself it could be more than the human. So similarly, I look in the world, and when I was in the West, you begin to see who are the idols. And idols are people who are taking care of their knowing well. The guy knows how to handle money, knows how to do this, knows how to do this. But how many beings are taking care of their unknown? And you see, the only ones I've found to be very profound are Tibetan meditators and Buddhist meditators and yogis in ancient India, and even shamans. All those beings who were sensitive to life and its process, not to the process that an individualized conception of life makes for itself. In other words, there's a way of experiencing eternity where it's as if like you're not sure if you're a temporal being or not, so you're assuming that you're this idea that's going to go for an infinite point, and that's why you have desires. But once you get out of the realm of desire, once you see that they said don't go after your desires because it would give you a clarity in thinking, you begin to see life is not about an accumulation of something that is just giving you a more, nice, better experience. Life is one where you are here to seek the depths. And so yogis and mystics knew that you must explore your unknown, and you must do it compassionately. You must do it as if all life is guiding you to the next moment. And when it does, there is a significance in that is suggesting eternity. And so you will learn from any moment. Because transcendence is becoming the nature of your vision as you're self-observant. And then from nothingness, mindfulness will be introduced. You will begin to see that after you've had these profound experiences of your collective being and collective consciousness, as you have associated with an individual form this whole time and space, you begin to see that you are realizing that it is time for man to do something he has never done before, and that is to take a transcendent action again, beyond the ideology of man. So what that means is, I am not here to change ideology. I am here to introduce the new dimension where the experience of human consciousness is going. And it is one of direct experience. And in direct experience, there can be no dictators, there can be no elites, there can be no illusion. And you will see that even Karl Marx knew that in the moment of death, all men were equal, even those who did not share. For we are beyond the conception that creates chains by branching out knowledge when it is the roots that holds it all. And your mindfulness will be done not by an idea anymore, but by your inspiration to be present in your experience of your moment. Because before you're a human being, you're a moment of being, you're a moment of existence and experience, and that is profound. Much blessings and namaste.